want to tell you about a Thursday morning, 7:15 a.m., job site, Southwest Houston, 83 degrees already. The kind of heat that tells you it's going to be a long day. I was standing at the edge of the foundation, 22 years of instinct in my boots, reading the pour the way you read a face. Behind me, I could hear the crew, Diego running the mixer, Marcus checking the rebar spacing, young Kelvin asking questions nobody else had the patience to answer. That was my site. Those were my people. That sound, machinery and morning and men who showed up, was the only language I had ever fully trusted. Then a black SUV pulled up. Out stepped a 28-year-old kid in a white dress shirt, slim-fit trousers, shoes that had never touched dirt. He looked at the site the way people look at things they plan to own, not to understand. He walked over to me, looked me up and down in my work boots and hard hat, and said, "You must be the foreman." 22 years, I said. He nodded once, like that was a problem, not a credential. "I'm Connor Ellis," he said. "New VP of Operations, Westfield Capital." He handed me a business card. Thick, matte black. The kind of card that costs more than some of my guys make in an hour. "Great," I said. "Welcome to the site." He looked past me at the crew. "We're going to be making some changes," he said. That was Thursday. By the following Thursday, he had fired me, in front of every man on that site. What he did not know, what nobody at Westfield Capital had apparently read carefully, was the agreement Ray Gutierrez had signed when he sold them the company. The page that said my name. 12%. Silent equity. Welcome to Virtue Line, where quiet men stop being quiet. Let's go back to the beginning. My name is Jake Mercer. I am 41 years old. Master contractor, licensed project manager. 22 years in commercial construction in the greater Houston area. I am not a college man. I will say that plainly and without apology. I went to trade school at 19, worked under a foreman named Ruben, who showed me that a level is a moral instrument, that straight and true means something beyond the blueprint. By 25, I was running my own crew. By 30, I was the one other foreman called when a pour went wrong or a load calculation didn't sit right. If you have ever built something with your hands that you knew would still be standing long after you were gone, drop that in the comments, because that is the only kind of legacy I have ever understood. The company was called Gutierrez Construction, started by a man named Raymond Gutierrez. Ray, 64 years old, born in San Antonio, hands like two slabs of weathered oak, and a voice like gravel rolling downhill. Ray hired me when I was 23. He did not interview me in an office. He handed me a set of blueprints on a job site, pointed at a discrepancy in the column spacing and said, "What do you see?" I told him. He hired me on the spot. 18 years we worked together. 18 years of early mornings and problem sites. And one conversation that I want to tell you about. 3 years ago, Ray called me into his office. Not the job site, the office, which was unusual. Ray preferred the ground to any chair. He said, "Jake, I'm selling." I sat with that for a moment. "Who to?" I asked. "Private equity group out of Dallas, called Westfield Capital." He paused. "They made an offer I can't argue with. My knees can't either." He slid a folder across his desk. Before I sign, I wanted you to see this. Inside the folder was a document, a partnership amendment. I told them I had a silent equity holder, Ray said. 12%, non-negotiable. Whoever owns this company owns it with you. I looked up. Ray, don't argue with me. You kept this company standing for 18 years. You know where every body is buried, every permit, every variance, every contractor bond, every project file. He leaned forward. That knowledge is worth 12%. They agreed to it? I asked. He smiled for the first time in the conversation. They didn't read it carefully enough to disagree. The sale closed on a Monday. By Wednesday, the new signage was already going up. Gutierrez Construction became G.C. Westfield Commercial Contractors. The name change took 2 days. The disrespect took about 2 weeks. The first thing Connor Ellis did was call an all-hands meeting. Every foreman, every crew lead, the office staff, the estimators, everyone. 53 people in a parking lot. Because the trailer wasn't big enough. Connor stood on a folding table. I want you to picture that. A 28-year-old in a dress shirt standing on a folding table, talking to men who had poured concrete in 100-degree heat for 2 and 3 decades. He said, Westfield is bringing a new culture, data-driven, efficiency first. We are going to be evaluating every role for performance and cost-effectiveness. He looked at me specifically. We're also going to be restructuring the management layer, streamlining the chain of command. One of the older crew leads, Roberto, raised his hand. What does that mean for the foreman? Connor said, it means some positions will be consolidating. He still hadn't looked away from me. 3 days later, Connor reassigned me. Not fired, not yet. Reassigned. From project lead on the West Chase Medical Complex, a $26 million job I had been managing for 8 months, to Site Compliance Coordinator. Site Compliance Coordinator means walk the site, check boxes, file reports nobody reads. It is the construction equivalent of sending someone to count paper clips. He delivered the news in the site trailer, in front of Diego and 2 other foremen. Diego looked at the floor. I looked at Connor. You're moving me off a $26 million project 8 months in? I said, quietly. We're bringing in a project manager with a different set of competencies, he said. What competencies? I asked. He straightened his collar. Digital project management, software integration, things the team needs going forward. I nodded. Who's replacing me on West Chase? He said a name I had never heard. I looked him in the eye. That person has never poured a slab in Houston summer heat, I said. This site will tell them that on day 1. Connor smiled. The specific smile of a man who has never been wrong because he has never been accountable. We appreciate your institutional knowledge, Jake. We just need it in a different capacity. I took the compliance coordinator role, not because I accepted it, because compliance coordinators see everything. Every site, every file, every subcontractor report. Within 2 weeks, I had found the first problem. The West Chase Medical Complex, the one they took me off, had been re-spec'd. Connor's new project manager had submitted a revised load calculation to the city inspector. I pulled the original blueprints, the ones I had worked from for 8 months. Then I pulled the new submission. The revised specs had reduced the rebar density in 3 load-bearing sections. Not enough to fail inspection on paper, enough to matter in 30 years when this building is still standing and there are people inside it. I have 22 years in this trade. I know the difference between a cost-saving adjustment and a shortcut that someone will answer for long after they have cashed out. I called Ray. He picked up on the second ring. He sounded tired, the way a man sounds when he has been carrying guilt for longer than he wants to admit. I heard about the reassignment, he said. Did you know this was coming? I asked. Long pause. I suspected they'd restructure. I did not expect them to move this fast. They're cutting rebar on West Chase, Ray. Silence. Jake, his voice dropped. You still have that document I gave you? Yes. Read the second page again, specifically the paragraph about licensed contractor obligations. He hung up. I went home that evening and found the document. I read the second page, and I found what Ray wanted me to find. Let me explain something about construction in Texas. A general contractor's license, the kind required to pull permits, bid government contracts, and legally operate a commercial construction company in the state of Texas, is a personal credential. It belongs to a human being, not a company, not a private equity firm. When Westfield Capital bought Gutierrez Construction, they bought the equipment, they bought the client relationships, they bought the project pipeline. But they could not buy the license. Ray Gutierrez's general contractor license had expired when he turned 62. He had transitioned the company's primary license to mine 4 years ago, quietly, the way Ray did most things that mattered. The second page of my equity agreement was very clear. The company's licensed contractor of record is Jake A. Mercer, license number TX-GC-0047291. This license is non-transferable and remains the personal property of Jake A. Mercer. All permits, bonds, and government bid qualifications associated with this company are contingent on Jake A. Mercer's active participation. Non-transferable. My license. The company could not legally operate on a single government contract without my name on the paperwork. And Westfield Capital, the private equity firm that had been so very eager to restructure, had one federal contract pending, a $41 million infrastructure project with the city of Houston, set to break ground in 6 weeks, requiring, in explicit contractual language, a licensed general contractor of record with a minimum of 15 years of documented Texas experience. My name, my years, my credential. I called Maya Torres the next morning, business attorney. I had used her twice before, once for a subcontractor dispute, and once when a client tried to walk away from a completion payment. She picked up the way good attorneys do, like she already knew it was important. I told her about the equity, the license, the rebar specs on West Chase, the federal contract. She was quiet for about 20 seconds. Then she said, "Jake, how long do you have before they try to remove you completely?" "I don't know," I said. "Connor doesn't like looking at me." "Then we have maybe 2 to 3 weeks before he manufactures a reason. That's our window." She asked for every document, every safety concern I had documented, every spec change, every email. "Don't confront him," she said. "Don't argue, don't react. You're invisible until I say otherwise." "That's not my natural state," I told her. She said, "Make it your natural state. Invisible men can go anywhere." Over the next 10 days, I became the best compliance coordinator that company had ever had. I walked every site, every day. I filed every report, photographed every variance. documented every change order that had not been properly permitted. What I found was not just the West Chase rebar issue. Connor's new project manager, the one with the right competencies, had been cutting corners on 3 sites. Not catastrophically, not yet. But in construction, the difference between not yet and catastrophically is just time. And then I found something that made my hands go cold. In the federal bid documents for the $41 million Houston infrastructure project, which had already been submitted, my license number, TX-GC-0047291, on a document I had never signed, on a bid I had never reviewed, on a federal government submission that went out under my credential, without my knowledge, without my authorization, without my signature. Submitting a federal bid under a license number without the license holder's consent is a federal crime, not a civil dispute, not an employment issue. Federal. Diego found me on site that afternoon. He had a phone in his hand, turned toward me. "You need to see this," he said. It was an email thread. Connor to someone at Westfield headquarters. Diego had a contact in the office. Sandra, the office manager, who had forwarded it to him because she had been here for 11 years and she knew whose side to be on. The email was 3 weeks old. Subject line, Mercer, Transition Timeline. In it, Connor laid out a plan. Phase 1, reassign Mercer to compliance, remove him from client-facing projects. Phase 2, begin documenting any and all performance issues or attitude problems. Phase 3, formal termination for failure to adapt to new organizational culture. He had written, and I want you to hear this clearly, Mercer represents the old guard mindset that is incompatible with Westfield's growth strategy. He is the kind of employee who believes tenure equals authority. That belief is what we are here to dismantle. If you have ever been called old guard by someone who had never built a single thing, you know exactly what I felt reading those words. I handed the phone back to Diego. I said, "Thank Sandra for me." He looked at me. "What are you going to do?" I picked up my water bottle. "My job," I said. "Until I don't." The safety incident happened on a Tuesday. South Site, the retail development on Westheimer. Connor's project manager, the one with the competencies, had authorized a crew to work without the secondary shoring on an 8-foot trench. OSHA standard is crystal clear. Anything over 5 feet requires shoring. I had flagged it in my compliance report 3 days earlier. The report had not been acted on. At 11:47 a.m., the trench wall shifted. Nobody was inside it when it happened. By the grace of God and a lunch break, nobody was hurt. But the trench collapsed. Equipment was damaged. Work was halted. OSHA was notified automatically through the site's safety system. Connor held an emergency meeting within the hour. I was in that meeting. He looked around the room. Then he said, "The compliance coordinator is responsible for flagging and escalating site safety issues." He looked at me. We had a compliance report on this trench that did not trigger the appropriate escalation response. The room was very quiet. "Are you saying this is my fault?" I asked. He straightened. "I'm saying there was a process failure in compliance oversight." I reached into my jacket, pulled out a printed copy of my report. "This is my compliance report," I said, dated 3 days ago. Page 2, Southside Westheimer. Insufficient shoring on excavation. Recommended immediate halt pending secondary support installation. Report submitted to Connor Ellis, VP of Operations, for action. I set it on the table. I escalated it, Connor. To you. 2 days later, I was called to HR. The HR representative was a young woman named Brittany, who had been with the company for all of 4 months, which meant she had been brought in by Westfield and had no memory of what this company used to look like. Connor sat across from me. Brittany read from a prepared statement. We are placing you on administrative suspension pending a performance investigation related to the Westheimer safety incident and ongoing concerns about your adaptation to company leadership. I looked at Connor. He looked at the wall. I want my response on the record, I said. Brittany looked up. Of course. I submitted a safety report 3 days before that incident. That report was received by Connor Ellis and not acted upon. If that is the performance failure under investigation, I'm curious whose performance is actually being reviewed. Brittany wrote something down. Connor said nothing. I stood up. I'll be reachable, I said. Let me know what you decide. I drove directly to Maya's office. She was waiting. I laid out everything on her conference table. The equity agreement, the license documentation, my compliance reports, the trench incident record, the email Diego had forwarded, the federal bid with my unauthorized license number. Maya looked at the bid document the longest. She said, "Do you know what 18 USC 1001 is?" "No," I said. "It is a federal statute. It covers false statements on federal government submissions." She tapped the bid document. "They submitted your license number to a federal agency on a $41 million contract without your authorization. That is not a civil matter, Jake." "I know," I said. "I have already contacted someone," she said. "Someone who handles matters like this." She picked up her phone and sent a text. "We have a meeting on Thursday," she said. "With who?" I asked. She set the phone down. "The Office of the Inspector General, Federal Contracting Division." The suspension lasted 4 days. On the 5th day, a Thursday, Connor called me back to the main job site, the West Chase Medical Complex. Not to reinstate me, to fire me. And I need to tell you how he did it, because it matters. He called the all hands, not in a parking lot this time, on the actual West Chase site. Every foreman, every crew lead, every laborer who could be pulled from their station for 15 minutes. 61 people, in a semicircle. And Connor stood in front of them and said, "We are making a leadership change effective immediately. Jake Mercer is being separated from the company due to a failure to meet the performance expectations of the new organizational structure." He paused. "We appreciate his years of service." The site went silent. Not the respectful kind of silence. The kind that means 61 people are trying to decide what to do with something that doesn't sit right. Diego was in the front row. He looked at me. I looked back. And I gave him the smallest nod, because I needed him to trust that I knew what I was doing. I took off my hard hat. I shook Connor's hand, which he did not expect, and I said, clearly enough for the front rows to hear, "I'll see you next Thursday, Connor." He frowned. "For what?" I picked up my bag. "Board meeting," I said. "I'll have my attorney send the agenda." I walked off that site without looking back. The week between that Thursday and the next one was the quietest week of my adult life. Not because nothing was happening, because everything was happening, and none of it was loud. Maya filed a formal notice of equity shareholder rights with the company's corporate attorney. That attorney had apparently never read the equity agreement carefully. He called Maya in a panic. She told me later that his exact words were, "This can't be right." She told him, "Read it again." The WEF of the Inspector General confirmed receipt of our documentation on Monday of that week. The unauthorized federal bid submission, my license number, the dates, the contract value. The agent I met with, a man named Caldwell, gray suit, yellow legal pad, the specific stillness of a man who had seen this before, looked at my documentation for about 12 minutes without speaking. Then he said, "Mr. Mercer, are you prepared to provide a formal sworn statement?" I said yes. He said, "Good. We'd like to have someone present at the board meeting Thursday, if that's acceptable." I said, "I was hoping you'd say that." Thursday arrived. Maya and I pulled into the parking lot of the GC Westfield offices at 8:55 a.m. Two men in gray suits were already in the lobby, Agent Caldwell and a second agent I had not met. We walked in together. The receptionist, a young woman who had been hired after the acquisition and did not know me, looked up and said, "Can I help you?" "Jake Mercer," I said. "I'm on the agenda." The conference room had 8 people in it. 3 Westfield Capital partners, including the managing director, a man named Harlan Price, who I had never met in person but whose signature was on the acquisition documents, 2 company attorneys, Connor Ellis, and 1 empty chair. When I walked in, followed by Maya, followed by 2 federal agents, Connor's face did something interesting. It went through 4 stages in about 2 seconds. Surprise, confusion, calculation, and then something I had not seen on him before: uncertainty. Harlan Price said, "Mr. Mercer, this meeting was called to discuss the terms of your separation." "I know," I said. "I called it." Price looked at the attorneys. Maya set a document on the table and slid it toward him. "My client holds 12% silent equity in this company, as documented in the acquisition agreement your firm signed. As an equity holder, he has full rights to request a board meeting, review company financials, and vote on material decisions." Price picked up the document. He read it, and I watched his face go through the same 4 stages Connor's had. Maya placed a second document on the table. "This is the federal bid submitted to the City of Houston for the $41 million infrastructure contract. Page 4, License of Record, TX-GC-0047291. That is my client's personal general contractor license, submitted to a federal agency without his knowledge, consent, or signature, which constitutes a violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 1001. The room was completely still. Connor said, That was an administrative oversight. The license number was on file from previous filings." Agent Caldwell spoke for the first time. "Mr. Ellis." Connor turned. "I'm Special Agent Caldwell with the Office of the Inspector General. We've been reviewing your firm's federal contracting submissions since Monday morning." He set his own folder on the table. "We have a few questions about this submission and about 2 others." Harlan Price asked for a 15-minute recess. Maya and I stepped into the hallway. 5 minutes later, one of Westfield's attorneys came out. He looked like a man who had discovered a structural issue in the load-bearing wall of a building he had already sold. "Mr. Mercer," he said, "would you be open to discussing an arrangement that keeps the Houston contract viable?" I looked at him. "Define arrangement," I said. "Your active involvement as licensed contractor of record on the Houston infrastructure project. I said, "My license, my terms." He nodded quickly, too quickly for a man who had been confident 20 minutes ago. Maya and I went back into the room. I sat down. I had written 3 terms on a legal pad the night before in my kitchen, alone. I set the legal pad on the table. 1, I said, I am reinstated as licensed project manager of record for all active GC Westfield projects. My title is not negotiable and is not subject to Connor Ellis's approval. Connor's jaw tightened. 2, Diego Ramirez, Marcus Webb, and Roberto Castillo, 3 foremen who were pressured out in the last 30 days, are offered their positions back. Full back pay for lost time. 3, I looked at Harlan Price directly. Westfield Capital commissions an independent safety audit of every active project site. Any spec deviations are corrected before work resumes. The cost is Westfield's. Silence. Harlan Price looked at his attorneys. Then he looked at Agent Caldwell. Then he picked up a pen. Connor Ellis resigned before the end of the meeting. He did not slam anything. He did not make a speech. He put his company laptop on the table, stood up, said he needed to pursue other opportunities, and walked out of the conference room. The door closed behind him. Nobody in the room said a word about it. That specific silence, the one that means an exit was expected, that was the moment I understood what quiet authority actually sounds like. Here is the full accounting. You stayed this long, you deserve the real numbers. The federal license matter was resolved through a corporate consent agreement. Westfield paid a significant civil penalty. The unauthorized bid was resubmitted, this time with my actual signature, my actual review, and my actual stamp. The Houston infrastructure contract was awarded $41 million. My license, my site, my crew. The West Chase Medical Complex completed on schedule. After we fixed the rebar, Diego came back, Marcus came back, Roberto took 2 weeks to think about it and then came back. Ray called me the day the Houston contract was awarded. He sounded like himself again, the gravel and morning coffee version. I heard, he said. You heard what? I asked. All of it. He laughed, a short, rare sound. I told them 12% was non-negotiable. They thought I was being sentimental. Were you? I asked. Long pause. A little, he said, but mostly I was being accurate. You were always worth more than 12%. Then why not 15? I said. He laughed again. Don't push it, Mercer. I spent 22 years believing that if you showed up, did the work right, and never cut a corner, the ground would stay solid under you. And mostly, it did. Until a 28-year-old in dress shoes decided that 22 years was a liability. Not because I was wrong, because I was inconvenient. Here is what I know now. The knowledge is the equity, not the title, not the office, not the dress shirt. The knowledge that lives in your hands and your eyes, and the 2 decades of mornings you showed up before anyone else, that is not a thing anyone can reassign. They can put you in a different box on an org chart. They cannot take the credential. They cannot forge the experience. And they cannot submit the license without the man behind it. On the day the Houston contract broke ground, I stood at the edge of a fresh foundation and listened to the pour. Diego beside me, the crew doing what they do, heat already building at 7 a.m. Diego said, "You good, boss?" I looked at the site. 22 years of mornings that looked exactly like this one. "Yeah," I said. "I'm good." That's my story. One document nobody read, one license nobody checked, and one Thursday morning that finally put the right name on the right project. If you have ever been the person who kept the whole operation running while someone else planned your replacement, this is your sign. Drop a comment. Tell me what you would have done when he fired you in front of the crew. Share this with someone who builds things with their hands and their name. Like if you stayed to the end. And subscribe to Virtue Line. Because quiet men, we are done being quiet. See you in the next one.